I am 19. I am not successful, but I have very big goals. So here are the 7 life lessons that I genuinely believe will be the reason why I accomplish everything I set out to do. Number 1 is about
dopamine. Has everything to do with how you feel right now as you're listening to this. It has everything to do with how you will feel an hour from now. It has everything to do with your level of motivation and your level of desire and your willingness to push through effort.
I think procrastination and the lack of action is the reason why many people are not able to accomplish their goals. And I'm trying to solve that issue other than just saying to do more work. And we're going to understand dopamine, how to optimize our systems to be able to get ourselves to be more motivated, have more drive and passion, and work more without exerting more effort. That sounds fucking OP. So everything I am saying will be based off of Andrew Huberman and his plethora of dopamine podcasts, okay? Equally, you would have to understand that dopamine plays a role in a person's personality. There's the argument of nature versus nurture. Dopamine is entirely genetic and you can't do nothing about it.
If ever you've interacted with somebody who just doesn't seem to have any drive, they've given up, or if you've interacted with somebody who seems to have endless drive and energy, what you are looking at there in those two circumstances is without question a difference in the level of dopamine circulating in their system.
Dopamine is genetic, and equally, it defines your personality with how motivated and driven you are to do more actions, which, by the way, sounds devastating because now I can't control it. Now my procrastination is now not my fault, but instead an excuse because I was born different. But not true, because dopamine is at the very least controllable. First, you would have to understand that our body is constantly creating dopamine. Equally, our body is constantly using dopamine for every activity we do. Spikes up and down, boom, you get an average. That is your dopamine baseline. That's where you normally sit around. And with this information, treat dopamine as a resource, because every activity you do, at least the pleasurable ones, there will be a significant increase in your dopamine.
Has everything to do with those genetics, but also with what you've experienced in the previous days and the previous months and so on. When you do or ingest certain things, your levels of dopamine will rise above baseline transiently, 1.5 times for chocolate. Sex, both the pursuit of sex and the act of sex, increases dopamine 2 times. So it's a doubling above baseline.
And when your dopamine is doubled, it will equally decrease in however much it was increased. And when you're in that state of negative dopamine or below your baseline, you will feel less motivated. You will want to do less work, and you will literally be in pain. And this happens when you do things that are pleasurable. TikTok, masturbation, chocolate, overindulging in alcohol, anything you find pleasurable will leave you in a state of negative dopamine.
We seek something that we really like, or we indulge in it, like eating a little piece of chocolate. If we really like chocolate, there's some pleasure, but then there's a little bit of pain that exceeds the amount of pleasure, and it's subtle, and we experience it as wanting more of that thing.
And remember, whilst you are in that state of pain, you are also at a negative baseline in dopamine, so you're equally demotivated, you have less energy, you don't want to do anything, and then people wonder why they are procrastinating, because let me tell you, it is not a lack of willpower, it is because they are not optimizing their dopamine. So the solution is quite simple. All you would have to do is avoid things that are super pleasurable to yourself, stop overly indulging, and what the fuck? That was very obvious advice. No, wait a second, because once you understand dopamine, it then becomes a game of timing. You can indulge, you can still have fun and eat chocolate, just save it for the night, because you know the saying, a new day, a new me, literally, because your dopamine baseline has practically reset. You're sleeping, there's no activities you're capable of doing, and because of that, you slowly climb right back up. So you can eat that chocolate, you can be in that negative, and there will be no consequences other than like the physical factors of being overweight and consuming fructose, blah, 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 blah. What I'm saying is save your mornings for your productive work. If you look at the research, 6 to 8 hours of once you wake up is when you produce the highest quality of work, and dopamine plays a role in that. Timing is very important. You can still have fun. And number 2, is about the mid-singular, anterior mid-cingulate cortex. Yes.
But what's interesting about this brain area is there are now a lot of data in humans, not some mouse study, showing that when people do something they don't want to do, like add 3 hours of exercise per day or per week, or when people who are trying to diet and lose weight resist eating something.
Right.
When people do anything that they, and this is the important part, that they don't want to do. In many ways, scientists are starting to think of the anterior mid-cingulate cortex not just as one of the seats of willpower,
right,
but perhaps actually the seat of the will to live.
Was that crazy? Because when I genuinely heard about this, I was losing my mind. Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's tangible. It's tangible. Because I would watch a lot of videos as a kid discussing about willpower and how it is something you would have to sharpen, but it's so vague. It is not tangible. I cannot fully comprehend what willpower is. But now I know that it is a part of your brain, and equally, it is something that you could grow literally.
When people do anything that they, and this is the important part, that they don't want to do.
Right.
It's not about adding more work. It's about adding more work that you don't want to do.
Yes.
This brain area gets bigger.
Yep.
And beyond that, if you do not engage in things that are constantly difficult, it entropies, I think that's the word. What I'm saying is, a lot of people are not able to accomplish their goal. There is a bottleneck, and I do not believe it is a lack of knowledge, because you learn knowledge through putting in effort and trying, but a lot of people don't even try and put in that effort because of maybe a dopamine problem. Now we know how to optimize our dopamine, and then beyond that, it could be a willpower issue where you are motivated, everything's optimized, but you don't want to work. And nonetheless, you should work, and the more you do difficult things, the easier it will be to work, and it opens up that bottleneck for people to actually accomplish their goals. And number 3 is how to persuade people or influence them or manipulate, seduce them. Nonetheless, it's about controlling another person. It does seem quite awful, but if you know how to control other people, it can equally be used as a way to defend yourself from their tactics. And here's the other thing. You learn this in high school, ethos, pathos, logos. Here's the thing. Forget about ethos and logos because it trumps in comparison when we're talking about
Pathos is the most powerful tool you have to persuade your listeners, because it's all about emotion and heart. And I think we're much more convinced by our emotions than we are by our logic.
Ethos and logos is good, but for logos, it requires the person to be very aware of the subject you're discussing about, because you're relying on logic. But if the person does not have base knowledge and what you're trying to influence them in, it's not going to work. Equally with ethos, it requires a lot of time and effort, and if someone does not know you, ethos does not work. Pathos applies to everyone. That person can be dumb, stupid. That person can know you, not know you. All you need to do is learn to tell a good story, and you will influence everyone.
There's something about a story that we as listeners can see ourselves in personally, and it gets us all caught up in it. Much more so, for example, than a statistic or a fact. And
number 5, and I'm going to make it very quick now, is diet, because after I lost my 20 pounds eating only fast food, I realized one thing. I would completely lose all my energy in the afternoon. I wouldn't be able to pump out one push-up, lift a water bottle because of my diet. It was actually very, very bad. Changed it, got all my energy back. Equally, if you're suffering with acne problems, it's because of your diet, not because of you eating greasy foods. Instead, it's because of your guts. Your guts controls your brain and skin health. And all I did was remove phytic acids. Phytic acids come from seeds and other things that negatively affect your gut. If you control your gut's health, you control your brain, skin health, blah, 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 blah. Number 6.
The whole basis of intermittent reinforcement is that you don't really have a specific schedule of when dopamine is going to be high and when dopamine is going to be low and when dopamine is going to be medium. That's a predictable schedule, not a random intermittent schedule. So do like the casinos do. It certainly works for them. And for activities that you would like to continue to engage in over time, whatever those happen to be, Start paying attention to the amount of dopamine and excitement and pleasure that you achieve with those, and start modulating that somewhat at random.
Pretty much, you will receive more pleasure when things come randomly, and that could be based off of your release for music. That could be how you text someone and you want them to be more obsessed with you. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't fucking know. Anyway, I'm ending this video short because I've been working on this for way too long, and lesson number 7, it's pretty much that you should be okay with releasing mediocre work if that allows you to do more work. Pretty much, I got them from The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, watch my second channel videos. Pretty much, a lot of things has happened, but I don't talk about my main channel. Toodly-doo.